Hey, deserving listeners, a lot of you have been asking me to analyze Diddy's apology, so let's watch it. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor, and I sometimes analyze apologies on YouTube. Let's watch.
It's so difficult to reflect on the darkest times in your life, but sometimes you gotta do that. I was fucked up. I hit rock bottom. But I make no excuses. My behavior on that video is inexcusable.
So in a bit, I will break down everything that he's saying, and I will provide my criteria for effective apologies.
My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video.
All right, so first off, it comes across like it's casual, but it's possible that he has prepared what to say, which wouldn't be unwise, but that could call his sincerity into question. Another thing is he's also referencing that video. I assume that he's referring to a video that came out recently that CNN published, which I'll get into in a second. I'll go into the background that I know of this story after we get through this.
I'm disgusted. I was disgusted then when I did it. I'm disgusted now. I went and I sought out professional help. I had to go into therapy, and go into rehab. Had to ask God for his mercy and grace.
Okay, so he's mentioning therapy and rehab, which is good, of course, but it really depends on what he's doing there. How long, what sort of therapist is he going to? Is he meaningfully using the time to address the perpetration that he has been alleged to commit?
I'm so sorry. But I'm committed to be a better man each and every day. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm truly sorry.
Okay, very brief. One of the briefest. So I compiled a list of relevant historical events that relate to this apology. So these are just the highlights. I'm sure there's a lot more to this story, and I'm guessing that a lot more is going to come out in the future. I feel like we're at that moment with Harvey Weinstein, honestly. So one of the highlights worth mentioning is in 2017, Cindy Ruella, his personal chef, she filed a lawsuit against Diddy, alleging a number of things, including sexual harassment. Fast forward to last year, the end of 2023, his former partner, his former long-term girlfriend for 11 years, Cassie Ventura, they were together from 2007 till 2018, reportedly. And in late of 2023, she filed a lawsuit against Diddy, alleging abuse and violence and even sex trafficking. And they quickly settled out of court. Both parties did not disclose the terms of that settlement. There's other allegations and rumors that Diddy has been paying off victims for decades, similar to other prominent figures like Harvey Weinstein and Bill O'Reilly and R. Kelly and Roger Ailes and Charlie Rose and Kevin Spacey and Donald Trump. Then, after the Cassie Ventura lawsuit was filed, at least from the reporting, it looks like a number of other people stepped forward, similar to other Me Too moments when you would have one victim step forward and it would be a prominent story, and a story like his former partner of 11 years stepping forward would really be a prominent story, and it was. A lot of other victims might feel like they can actually step forward too and maybe be believed. You know, you're more believable as a group of people than when you're by yourself, unfortunately. Of course, if one person stepped forward, we shouldn't be So a lot of other lawsuits came out. One lawsuit alleging sexual assault and revenge porn by Diddy. another lawsuit alleging also sexual assault and revenge porn by Diddy. Another lawsuit by a woman alleging that Diddy raped her when she was a minor, I think 17 years old. Another lawsuit by Rodney Jones, who was a former music producer that worked with Diddy. And the allegations were that Diddy sexually assaulted Rodney Jones. And also, Rodney Jones claims that Diddy had a pattern over time of harassing men on a regular basis, sexually harassing men, also drugging and assaulting these men. Allegations, but yikes. Also, it's worth mentioning that there are allegations and rumors that prominent figures within Diddy's inner circle also perpetrated these crimes, including work associates of Diddy. Also, Diddy's son has been alleged to have committed these crimes with Diddy. Some famous actors are also named. I won't name the names just in case. I don't know. There's a lot of people that might have been involved in these crimes, which we could imagine being true, unfortunately. So then, in March of 2024, federal agents started investigating sex trafficking charges for Diddy, and they raided his residences, I think both in Miami and Los Angeles. And the agents also questioned Diddy. And during that questioning, or after the questioning was over, Diddy asked if he could continue his scheduled vacation to the Caribbean, which sounds suspect because you think he might be fleeing the country. But the federal agents said, sure, you're free to go on your scheduled vacation to the Caribbean. So apparently that's where he is right now. And you can kind of see in the background of his apology video that it looks, I don't know. I don't know if that's a Caribbean roof there, but it has that kind of vibe. And there are rumors that he is never going to come back to the States because he will just avoid prosecution by going to places where there isn't a policy of extradition to the United States. So I should mention that he and his lawyers have repeatedly said that all of these allegations are false, that the people are in it just to get money out of him. So that is the backdrop to what happened very recently. I think just last week, CNN released a security camera video from a hotel. You can see the hallway of a hotel, and you see Cassie, his former partner. This video footage is from when they were still together. And Cassie is running out of the hotel. I won't show the video. You can watch it online. But Cassie is running out of the hotel room, and Diddy is running after her in a towel. It looks like he just got out of a shower or something. And he's running after her, and it is brutal what he does to her. And after assaulting, he's dragging her down the hallway back into the room. And it is disturbing. So when that video came out, it's not just he said, she said, it's video said. And so several brands have pulled out of contracts with Diddy, including Macy's is pulling their Sean John clothing. Hulu canceled a reality TV show that I think they were in the process of filming. So that is the backdrop to this apology video, that when CNN released that security camera footage, that's been around for a long time. I don't know why it wasn't released back then, but it gets released very recently. And then and so when he's apologizing for the video, that's what he's referring to. Okay, so let's watch the apology again.
It's so difficult to reflect on the darkest times in your life.
Okay, so there are a number of different rubrics that I will use when I am analyzing a public apology. One of which is just to use my 11 components of effective apologies that I developed that's based on research and my own experience. That I use this in my own life. When I apologize to my wife, I think about this. when I'm working clinically with clients. I think about this when I teach. I talk about. So let's talk about this first. 7 through 9 are harder to evaluate with a public apology because that would require us to know what happens in the future and also know what's truly in his heart. But when it comes to public apologies, we can look at these 6. So let's just concentrate on these 6. So number 1, we have, does he acknowledge the transgression? And I give a little example. I did this, blah, blah, blah. So he is saying, and he does in this video, from my memory watching it, 15 minutes ago, he says, I take full responsibility for what I did in this video, meaning that he harmed violently Cassie. So he's not saying he didn't do it. But a component of acknowledging the transgression is to describe it. What exactly is he acknowledging in the video, right? Because a lot of public apologies, they will say, I take full responsibility for what happened. But when you ask them more questions, or later they will make statements that indicate that what they saw is different than what we saw. What they saw was, I just lost my temper, not a big deal. It's not massively harmful and a part of a cycle of abuse. So there's that. The other thing is, given the background that I laid out, the transgression isn't just that one incident in the hallway, right? I mean, at the very least, Cassie has claimed, and it would be bizarre if that was the only time abuse had happened in that relationship. Maybe, but of course, that transgression in the hallway is horrific, and he should acknowledge that. But that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to her, and apparently tip of the iceberg when it comes to all the things that he has done. Now, maybe all the other allegations are false. Doesn't seem likely, but who knows? So what exactly, and we don't know because he doesn't go into detail, which is common for these kinds of videos. He doesn't say, I hit her, I was wrong, I have a problem. The second thing we want to look for, and you can think about this for your own apologies, not only that you give, but that you receive. What exactly is he acknowledging? I mean, at the very least, he's not saying, that's not me, that's a deep fake. So that's a tick in the column of good for him. But did he acknowledge the harm? Not really, right? He's saying, well, we'll watch again, but he's saying, I was at rock bottom, I'm disgusted, right? It wouldn't be hard to say, I harmed Cassie in that moment and many other moments. I was very hurtful, I was very harmful to her. Now maybe he was thinking that, but he doesn't say it. So there's that. Taking responsibility. It's my fault that, but again, he did take responsibility, but what transgression is he taking responsibility for? He doesn't give us any detail on that. That's why these public apologies can be so deceptive, because we're trained to believe if someone says they're sorry and they say that they accept full responsibility, then that's good, right? Like, what more are you supposed to say? Because we don't talk about what apologies are supposed to involve. And I talk about this a lot, that an effective apology doesn't have to have the phrase, I'm sorry, in it, or I take full responsibility. In fact, typically, really effective, sincere apologies, the person might not ever say, I'm sorry, because it's demonstrated in what all the other things that they're saying. If Diddy had said, when I watched that video, I am disgusted by what I'm seeing. There was, I've been on a long journey. I still have some of those impulses right now. I've talked to Cassie about it, and I need to do more of that. And I was abusive to her, and I feel just so bad. Sometimes I want to justify it to myself and say that I deserved to be heard, or that you don't understand what she was doing behind closed doors. But, that's just excuses for what okay. So that, to me, and I'm just one person watching, that's all I have to go off of. I would have received that as more sincere and a much better apology, just even that little bit that I said, even though I never said I'm sorry or I take full responsibility. You understand? So the other thing is we want to look for is a sincere expression of remorse. Yeah, it all depends on if you believe the statements that he's saying, the vibe that he's saying. Because I will say that compared to other public apologies, it is possible that he is sincere. There are other public apologies that I've evaluated where there's no way that they're sincere. They just don't look sincere. And number 6 is, does he provide a plan to address the cause? I will work on that problem by doing X, Y, and Z. He does mention therapy and rehab and asking God for grace and mercy. But what does that mean? Was it 3 sessions? We don't know.
It's so difficult to reflect on the darkest times in your life.
And by the way, so I just noticed that 2 posts ago on Instagram, this is a week ago that he posted this, it says time tells truth. So who knows what that means, but I think what that meant is that the truth will come out, y'all. I didn't do those things. The allegations are false. Stick with me. Hey fans, stick with me. And then the top comment is someone saying, so does surveillance footage. That also tells the truth. So on his own, he didn't have to post that. He could have avoided the whole topic, but he's publicly saying a week ago that time tells truth. Now, maybe he could argue that he's in this moment saying that it is true what happened and time will tell because I'm going to admit it, but that doesn't seem likely. But who knows?
It's so difficult to reflect on the darkest times in your life.
Oh, right. So what I was going to say right off the bat was a lot of these public apologies will have this element where they focus on themselves. At no point is there any expressed concern about the victim. It's all about, I'm disgusted with me. This is a dark time. It's hard for me to look back at this dark time. Okay, fine. That would make sense. If he's sincere, it would be hard to look. But that's not the topic sentence.
Sometimes you got to do that. I was fucked up. I hit rock bottom.
All right, rock bottom. That sounds like language he might have picked up from drug and alcohol rehab, right? Compared to other apologies, it's better.
I'm disgusted. I was disgusted then when I did it. I'm disgusted now. I went and I sought out professional help.
Okay, so that statement that he says, I was disgusted then and I'm disgusted now. I don't think that helps him, at least in my eyes. Because if he was disgusted all the way back then things would have been different after that point. As soon as the allegations came out, he wouldn't be posting on his Instagram, time tells truth. He wouldn't be denying all these things. He wouldn't be paying people off. He would be reacting very differently, right? He wouldn't be potentially fleeing the country. Who knows? I don't know. If he were to say, I recently have realized just how problematic I was. And at the time, I didn't really see it. But now, because how could he do that back then? And then, soon after that, sometimes people have moments of clarity, but usually there's a transition period. If there's ever change in these perpetrators, it usually takes a lot of time. There's a lot of dismantling because the foundation of that kind of abuse, and I don't know, but in terms of the allegations that we're hearing, the foundation is strong and it's within the individual's personality. It's their belief system. It's the way they deal with emotions. It's everything they've learned when they were growing up. It's the way they feel about their rights and their entitlement. And it's the way they think about gender often. because the more sexist someone is, the more likely they are to engage in intimate partner violence. It's not the only factor, of course, but it's one that we often will have to dismantle. And it takes time. It's like deprogramming someone out of a cult. I've worked with former cult members or former victims of intimate partner violence, having been in a 25-year relationship with a high control, abusive partner. And although they're out physically, mentally, it takes years to transition out because the gaslighting has programmed so many aspects of the way that they see the world and the way they see themselves and the way they see others. It requires a lot of work. It's not just waking up one day, praying to God and saying, I'm going to be a new man now. That doesn't happen. But take it from me. Because in order to have done those things over time means that there's something going on in the personality. And that's why these apologies don't mean anything unless it's a part of an ongoing process, right? Proof's in the pudding.
Got to go into therapy, going to rehab. Had to ask God for his mercy and grace. I'm so sorry. But I'm committed to be a better man each and every day. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm truly sorry.
Yeah, the more I watch it, the more it looks suspicious. I can't know, of course, and it could be sincere. It could be very sincere. It could be the beginning or some point in his healing process and his process of making all these wrongs right. I can't tell, but I don't know. The first time I watched it, I thought, well, there's promise, and then more I think about it. So let me get into why I'm skeptical. When I review all the allegations that have been made public, and God knows what hasn't been made public yet, it fits the profile of what we call a sexual sadist, someone that gets pleasure from harming other people sexually. When they have sex, they don't just want to have sex with someone. They're not just trying to, oh, that person's attractive, I want to have sex with them. No. They want the other person to be harmed. They want to notice that the other person is being harmed. They need the other person to be harmed. Because, famous people like Diddy and other famous figures that I've mentioned, presumably if they wanted to, they could have sex with people. Maybe not everybody, of course, but there's probably a fair amount of people that with some mutual consensual activities, they would be more than happy than to engage in sexual activity with them. So it's not about the sex. If you have a lot of options available to you and yet you're still doing these things, you're still assaulting people sexually, then there's a need, a desire for the other person to be uncomfortable at best or traumatized at worst. It's like you get off on the other person not enjoying it while you are doing it to them. Just think about it. And that is a very dangerous individual, right? And there are notable figures in our history, serial killers included, that they have this condition. Now, they also typically have to have what we call psychopathy or antisocial personality, in that they don't have remorse, they don't have empathy, they don't care about other people's feelings. That's what the internet might call a narcissist or something, but it's what we call psychopathy and antisocial personality. For whatever reason, they lack empathy, they lack remorse, they don't care about other people's feelings. Just having a lack of remorse and a lack of empathy doesn't mean you want to harm other people in any way, let alone sexually. But if you have both sadism and sexual sadism and psychopathy and antisocial, then those two come together and you're harming people all the time and you don't care. Again, I'm not diagnosing from afar. How could I? I'm just looking at stuff on the internet. But I'm telling you clinically, this is a thing, and it's not something that is often talked about. So the only way for him to be truly remorseful right now, if we imagine what he has done, if we believe the allegations and figure there's a lot more crimes that have happened over the years, which is a lot of assumptions, but it's not hard to assume that. If he were truly sorry right now, the only pathway to that is that a long time ago, in the 90s or the aughts, he had a moment of clarity and felt horrible. And he went through a time when he did a lot to change himself, and he did a lot of therapy, and he apologized to people, and he cleaned up his life, and he stopped drinking, and da-da-da. But then he relapsed, and he would go back in, and he's suffering, and he has all this trauma that he's acting out or something. And then he goes down a dark road, and then he pulls out. And still bad, he's still committing all these crimes, but every step of the way, he's getting better and better and better, healing, more clarity. And through his relationship with Cassie, he was still, doing that. And then in the last 6 years since breaking up with Cassie, he has done even more work. He still has a long way to go, but he's improved a lot. If that has happened, then I might believe his apology right now. But unless there's a very robust, obvious story that happened, it wasn't just like he was just thinking about, because if you're true, because I've worked with clients like this, they're rare, but they're out there. If they're truly sorry, if they truly feel bad, then they will themselves say, I have to tell everyone that I have a problem with sadism, or I have a problem with my anger. I have to be public because I don't want this to ever happen again. And it's sort of like when people get serious about quitting drinking. When people are toying with sobriety, they'll say, I'm just not going to drink. And then they think, oh, maybe I should tell people. No, I'm just going to do it on my own. That typically doesn't work. Eventually, they get to a place where they are very serious about abstinence, and they tell everyone around them, email or phone or in person, they say, look, I'm recovering from alcohol addiction, and I can't drink. So don't drink around me, or don't expect me to be drinking, and I am never going to drink. I'm going to try to never drink again for the rest of my life, that kind of talk, or whatever it is, the pathway. They have 2 sponsors. They go to 12-step meetings, maybe every day, but maybe every other day or something like that. They apologize. I'm so sorry for what I did when I was drunk. I don't even know what I did because I passed out. Did I do anything to you? They are all in, and that's what's required to possibly be sober. I mean, even with that, a lot of people will relapse, blah, blah, blah. Relapse is normal. Anyway, point is that when I see that in someone, then I'm like, okay, I have a lot of optimism in the future. If I just see someone stopping drinking, I have very little optimism about the future about them, because when people are serious, then they do a lot to demonstrate how serious they are. If that's going on behind the background, I don't know Diddy. I don't know what he's doing with his free time. Maybe that's going on in the background, and maybe his friends and family can. No, he's been on a thing, and he's been on this thing for years and years, and he knows. Believe me, he knows. And every time I see him, he apologizes to me for what he did to me. I'm gonna take a guess to say that's not the case, right? Given that the allegations are all flooding out, and last week he's like, time will tell the truth or whatever. All right, so here is my grading system. Let's just assume we're not going to go with an A or a B. Let's just start from the bottom. Completely insufficient is that, let's see, they said the words, but it's clear they aren't actually remorseful. Okay, well, I'm not clear that they aren't actually remorseful, and I've seen worse. So, because, he could have come out and made a video, or he could have not made the video, but he could have made a video of him saying it was deep faked, or you don't understand, she's the one that attacks me all the time. The apology video is not very good, but it's not as bad as that in my book. All right, D, slightly sufficient. The average public apology is slightly sufficient. That's what I'm reminding myself. Just remember that the average is a D. Minimally met some of the requirements. Lack of depth, lack of demonstrated remorse. Well, okay, so I would say that there is at least the look of remorse, which isn't always there. So that bumps it up. But minimally met some of the requirements. I would say that no, he barely said anything. So I'm going to give it a D, which isn't good. Maybe I should have a different, because it's so D minus. Yeah, D minus. Because if he were truly sorry, then all those other things. But if I'm just evaluating the video, not the man or all the behavior, it would have been a D if he had said, I apologize, I take full responsibility for the abuse or doing a number of things to Cassie that were bad or something. But he said, well, but that would have bumped it. Well, I don't know. I don't know why. I really feel like it's an F. But a lot depends, right? Depends on the future. So, which is always the case when I'm doing these kinds of analyses. So if I just evaluate the apology itself, yeah, it has the look of remorse, whether we believe it or not. And it's possible that it is a version of remorse. Like there's different kinds of remorse. There's different kinds of maturity levels regarding remorse, like I've been over. And he did say he was sorry, and he is disgusted. He said, I'm disgusted. And he did talk about going to therapy and rehab. So, well, now I'm thinking maybe, well, God, everything depends. But like I said, if he were truly sorry, there would have been this video a long time ago. It would have been a much bigger video. So D. What do you think? Yeah. And, the bottom line is that we are reviewing a story of tremendous abuse and harm. There's a strong possibility that there are dozens, if not hundreds of people currently walking around with trauma reactivity due to the abuse that he inflicted. It's a tragedy. And the fact that he was doing it out in the open and that people around him either participated or looked the other way. And as a society, we might have participated somehow by looking the other way or not being more inviting or accepting of victims when they come forward. I don't know. It's interesting that Me Too is not done. Time's up, pal. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.